Hello everybody, good morning, and thank you for attending the field school. So in this session, we are going to talk about biostimulant application in wheat, pea, and canola. This is our first project that we are doing with the biostimulant, so it is something quite new to us as well. And with everything that is new to the market, I think the basic question is, does it work? And that is the question that we are trying to answer with this project here. So the I guess the to start off, what is a biostimulant, or does anybody have an experience here using biostimulants in their own fields?
Well, technically, isn't everything that affects the growth of crop a biostimulant?
Yeah, no, that's true. I think biostimulants, it is an umbrella term, and it consists of a lot of different kinds of products. I think the criteria that they use is that anything that is helping with modifying the natural physiological processes instead of providing nutrition is a biostimulant. So it can modify the plant physiological processes to improve the growth, stress response, etc. It generally does not provide nutrition. However, some of the biostimulant packages can include some complementary nutrients included in it. To take an analogy, it will be like if we look at the fertilizers as the food, then biostimulants are more like vitamin supplements that don't really help on the nutrition side of things, but they do help with uh, absorption of food or other physiological processes. So, uh, yeah, in plants, they help with improving the efficiency of metabolism. They help to improve tolerance to stress conditions like heat, drought. They improve recovery from stress conditions. They help with nutrient use efficiency, water use efficiency, and they can also improve soil properties or soil microbiome in the rhizosphere or around the plant roots. So using these different processes, they improve plant yield. They can improve yield quality attributes like protein content or sugar content or color of the produce. And there are many different kinds of compounds that are considered biostimulants. They can be categorized into some major categories like microbial inoculants, um, uh, humic substances, protein-like compounds, and seaweed extract, etc. Um, Microbial inoculants include free-living bacteria, fungi, mycorrhizal fungi, etc. They are generally extracted from soils, plant residues, composted manure, etc., and then they're applied to crops using commercial formulations or carriers, and they can help with better establishment of plants, root biomass, root surface area, and nutrient uptake and nutrient efficiency. The microbial inoculants can also play a role in asymbiotic nitrogen fixation, in which they capture the nitrogen from the atmosphere and they make it available to the plants. Um, Another mechanism through which they help with nutrient uptake is through solubilization of some of the less available nutrients like phosphorus, which can be fixed to the soil particles, and these microbial inoculants, um, they produce organic acids which can help with the solubilization of some of these nutrients. Mycorrhizal fungi is well known for helping with phosphorus uptake through extending root length and root surface area and helping it reach the micropores. And these same mechanisms can also help with water uptake through using the mycorrhizal fungi. Another nutrient that they help with on the bioavailability side is potassium. Another category is humic substances. Humic substances, they're basically a major component of soil organic matter. So their functioning is pretty similar to soil organic matter. They play a big role in nutrient availability. They can help with pH, cation exchange capacity. They help with the soil structure. And some studies have also indicated that they can help on with tolerance to soil salinity. Um, and for protein-like compounds like peptides, amino acids, they can help with carbon and nitrogen metabolism. They play some role in regulating nitrogen acquisition by the roots, and they can help with gene expression for some of the genes that are involved in stress tolerance. Similarly, seaweed extracts, they can help with seedling establishment, plant growth, and generally their biostimulant attributes are due to plant growth hormones that are contained within these extracts. They also help on the soil structure side, and they can help with root growth, etc. So with all of these different compounds and these different methods or claims in which they can help with plant physiological growth, the main question is that how effective are these compounds, and how consistent is their effect, and what is the cost-benefit ratio in that how many extra bushels do they add for their cost. So in order to answer some of these questions, we are conducting this study. This is a 3-year study. It is being conducted at Lethbridge, Falher, and Forestburg locations. And at all of the locations, we are following the pea wheat canola rotation. It's a phased rotation, so all of the crops are being grown at all the three locations for all years. And for the biostimulant treatments, we are using Penergetic, ATP, Alpine, and Stoller. And we have 2 controls. One is the traditional control, in which we are just applying the fertilizers based on soil test recommendations. And there is an advanced control in which there are fertilizers, seed treatments, and the PGRs, but there are no biostimulant packages involved. Mike will go more into the details of what each of these packages contain. But for this study, we wanted to focus on the overall performance of the whole package rather than its individual components. Because some of the claims are that these biostimulants provide synergistic benefits, in that different components, when all of them are applied together, they provide more benefit than if only some components are applied. So we wanted to test that. And also the main objective of this study was to see if these products worked rather than how they worked. So we could take a non-reductionist approach where we could look at the whole package instead of the individual components. So maybe the individual components is the next step. If we continue this study, maybe we can look at some of the individual components and try to figure out the mechanisms of how they're working. But for now, we wanted to just look at the practical side of the things. And another unique aspect of the study was that each of these treatment was applied at the same plot, at the same location, year after year. So if this plot here was applied with Alpine for field peas this year, it was the same Alpine treatment was applied to wheat and canola in the previous 2 years. So the treatment stayed at the same plot. The reason was that some of these treatments provide a cumulative benefit, especially the ones that are more focused on the soil property side of thing or soil microbiome, like humic acids. So we wanted to see if there was a cumulative benefit after 3 years of the study. As far as the results until this point from the previous 2 years are, we did see some treatment effects, especially on field peas. There was a significantly higher yield. On average, it was only about 3 to 5 bushels an acre, but in 2020, this location here in Lethbridge and in Forestburg showed a pretty significant increase of about 10 to 15 bushels an acre. That was with the Alpine treatment, but Penergetic and Stoller treatments also had higher yields. For wheat, we saw an increase in yield in only 1 out of 6 site years. For that site year, it was about 12 to 15 bushels an acre increase, but other 5 years didn't really show a significant increase. And for canola, we haven't really seen any treatment effects until this point. However, we have to keep in mind that the last year was pretty severely affected with drought, so the yields were pretty low across the board. So it is possible that the treatment effects were not apparent, could not be seen just due to the water being a limiting factor. On the flip side though, some of these products do claim to help with tolerance to drought. So at least based on last year's data, we didn't really see a difference between the control plots and the plots that were applied with some of these treatments. It will be interesting to see this year's data though. It is the 3rd year, so there should be, if there is a cumulative effect, it should hopefully be observed this time around. And also, when we seeded these crops, there were at least a couple of weeks which were pretty dry. We seeded it around May 3rd, and then first irrigation was applied around May 15th, and then we had rainfall later. So it will be interesting to see if those treatments were able to help the plants to get through that dry patch better than maybe the control plots. So with that, I will pass it over to Mike to maybe talk about the plots and the treatments.
All right. Well, before we started, George and I, what were we talking about? Talking about a couple things on kind of, how we designed the trial and why. So one of the background things that happened here was, 2012-ish, CFIA changed efficacy requirements. So they had a lot of pressure from industry to open up the markets. And so one of the things that happened, I think, was, lobbying, whatever, they dropped the efficacy requirements for new products in Canada. And so, they had to prove environmental safety, responsibility, but new products didn't have to prove efficacy through their field trials. They could take data from US, Europe, wherever, bring it in, say, this works in wheats in France or wherever, and we're going to bring the products over here. So we were inundated with requests from different companies, from farmers, from everybody saying, hey, does this work? What about this product? Whatever. Like, we've never seen it. We've never tried it, right? So one of the things we were discussing was, the implications of that. And I think, the most obvious is simply that, there's a bit of buyer beware. The farmers are taking the risks. And we're at a point now where I think a lot of the companies that don't have a good quality product or maybe oversold and underdelivered, I think they're starting to taper out. And I think that's, hopefully a good reality for farmers, where the companies who have good market offerings, where producers are seeing, the economic efficiencies and other things in their operation, hopefully there's enough of that going on that those are the products that are going to stick around. So when we first developed this 3 years ago and applied for funding, our treatment list was almost entirely different, and we've seen the companies kind of streamline how they offer their products, how they market them to farmers. We've seen some changes within the actual treatments themselves and how they want to be sold and marketed, and the formulations, all those sorts of things has kind of been an interesting change. So like Gurbir said, we've been working with Penergetic, ATP, Alpine, and Stoller. And the principle behind what every company is trying to do is, take those efficiencies and take those processes and try and improve them. So everybody has a seed treatment. So whether or not you use a commercial, it depends on the product. But they're adding seed treatment on. So with Penergetic, we've got a Penergetic P. It doesn't stand for for plant, so that's a seed treatment, proprietary seed treatment goes on with the seed. Penergetic K to put down on the soil as a soil amendment, and then at herbicide application, putting Penergetic back in with herbicide. ATP, similar strategy, so they're using seed treatment to help with germination. It's got a couple biologicals in there, seaweed extract, rooting, for rooting, and transit, which is kind of that humic and fulvic acid family. And then there's a suite of micronutrients in there as well, phosphorus, zinc, manganese, and whatever. So all this information that I'm telling you is available on their websites, on their labels, whatever. It's, you know, we've kind of kept the individuals secretive till now in part to kind of help protect their competitive advantage. But you know, anybody can go look up, hey, if I'm going to apply a seed treatment here, an in-crop, what should I do? It's pretty easy to come up with this list, and for the most part, I wouldn't say it's prescriptive, but you know, any company that you work with is going to look at your field, look at your conditions, and come up with a program that's probably right. But in general, this is kind of what we've been following. So you know, ATP's got their Relief at herbicide that we've been using. That's got a couple biologicals, a phos, boron, zinc, manganese, and then the Fortify, which is again a seaweed extract, boron, phosphorus, potassium. So I talked to Steve the other day, that's $20 an acre for that whole package that we're using on, you know, peas or lentils, depending on your crop prices. That's a 1 or 2 bushel increase is their kind of economic return and threshold. So that's kind of where we're at with those. Alpine products, their flagship, kind of the Alpine G22, most people have heard of that. That's 70% orthophosphate, 622-2. And the principle there is, you know, we're often seeding early cold soils here, especially peas, wheat, durum, things around southern Alberta. So it's just a starter fertilizer to give you a little more phos boost, help that spring vigor before that phos is maybe more available within the soil. We also added F18 max at our herbicide and fungicide timing. So that's an 846, which is as well as boron, copper, manganese, and other organic acids. And then with Stoller, they've got a little different prescriptive package depending on which crop we're using. But again, in general, we've got a stimulate seed treatment, which is signaling molecule, cytokinin, gibberellic acid, and indole-3 butyric acid. And then at herbicide and fungicide, there's generally a combination of stimulate, golden harvest, excite, or sugar mover, depending on which crops that we're looking at. And those are, again, mostly composed of cytokinins, micronutrients, and things like that. So that's kind of the quick summary of what we've been up to here. You know, Gurbir mentioned, you know, these plots here, we would have done a burn down. I think we did a burn down a little late, May 3rd. Put our soil treatments and all that. Had them seeded right afterwards. In crops were June 11th for the peas and the 15th for the canola. So kind of that typical 2, 4, 6 leaf of everything. And you know, we're taking a number of different data collection. Gurbir talked about the yield and yield differences. We've also been looking at, you know, just emergence. We haven't seen really, you know, 2-3 day differences in product emergence, but as we kind of walk around, I do notice definitely some vigor differences. That's one that's, you know, usually the most obvious and observational. We've dug up roots in the past as well and seen differences in you know, maybe nodulation, or obviously our traditional untreated, usually with the lowest nodulation. Often, you know, maybe improved robustness of the plants or overall things like that, but nothing that's translated into the data package, I guess, that way. Fertility, we've been keeping everything the same. The only difference is, I think, we have been sampling a couple of the different treatments on their request just to see if there's any differences, and we're going to be looking at, you know, the 3rd year, trying to figure out what to do with that soil health aspect and you know, kind of maybe an end fertility. So, you know, maybe we don't have any yield difference in this 3rd year, but maybe we'll see, hey, we've got, you know, 20 pounds more available phos in one treatment all of a sudden after 3 years, or maybe there's more micronutrient availability, could be improvements, so maybe some water infiltration and penetrometer, and maybe we'll see something, you know, other, you know, other benefits that aren't necessarily just dollar. Dollar figures, yeah.
Yeah, Mike, so this is supposed to be the last year, is that right?
It is. It'd be nice to keep going because it's been here 3 now, so.
If you're just starting to see differences, I would encourage all the companies to keep going.
Yeah.
Because this is too good to just quit now, and we're still, because we do get asked a lot. We try my product, try this product, try that product, and as farmers it's hard to, so I think it's so good to, if you can encourage them to keep going, that would be, if everybody here talks to their supplier and just says, you know what, we think it's valuable, keep going.
Yeah, and so Ryan's comment just that, they're approached a lot to try different things and do different things, and obviously one of the challenges that we've seen and biases that happen too is if you try a product out and it doesn't work, it's pretty hard to want to try it again, and especially if it affected your bottom line and truthfully it could have been a bad year. There's so many environmental factors and things that play into it, and the opposite is true, is obviously there's probably people who try something, it works once, and then you have like your blinders on and maybe it doesn't work 5 years after that, but you're still hooked forever. And so the idea behind what we're doing is to find those cumulative effects, to find and find where the winners are. And we don't expect every product to work every year in every situation. And I think talking to the different reps and things is, I'm not sure that most of them necessarily believe that either. I think there's a time and a place, and I think if you don't have your basic agronomy down, then some of these products may not work and may not be right. And we're at the mercy of Mother Nature sometimes, and you can do everything right and get hit with a storm or whatever, and that's just is what it is. Yeah, thanks, Ryan.
So last year was a drought, and that's the
Yeah.
other thing. Is you almost need more than 3 years to really have some good. It'd be nice to for 2/3 or 3/4 of those trials to be good, average years instead of a drought and then or too wet. Because 3 years just isn't long enough.
Yeah, and the truth is, in ag research, we collect a number of site years, and with say the macronutrient studies, sometimes 8 out of 10 years are successful, even on a nitrogen fertilizer study, and then you get down to something like fungicide trials or insecticide trials, and you're lucky to get 3 of 10 site years to keep them because you don't have disease where you need it or when you need it, and maybe it comes in but doesn't affect your yield enough. And then biostimulant and other products might be 2 out of 10 years where you really see it. And is that enough? If you get enough of a boost in those couple years where it does work and when it works, for some producers that may be enough to say, hey, yeah, it might not work 3/4 of the time, but when it does, it's a huge boost, and it's what they need. So yeah, that is, I don't envy that side of things for farmers, for sure.
Are you pulling soil samples at all off the plots and seeing from year to year?
We're hoping to do that in the end here. I think, our plan for that?
I think we're going to do some of the analysis at the end of year 3, like major nutrients and maybe even compaction. But we're not doing a complete soil health analysis, at least in this study. The idea was to look more at whether they work for this time around, just to look at if there is some value in applying them. And now that we do have that information, we'll try and see if we can continue with maybe just for the field peas, and see if we can also include some of the other parameters like soil health, microbiology or root biomass, see if there's an effective.
And they're all foliar applications. Is there any dribble or seed place?
So the seed treatments, the question was like, how are they applied, and about the soil testing. So all the products have a seed treatment that goes on with the seed when we plant. Some of them, like the Alpine, we put through a liquid kit at seeding. So we've got a kit that goes on, it goes through the furrow with the seeds as a starter. Penergetic we sprayed down before planting in the spring. We've got, trying to think of the other ones, most of them all have a herbicide component, so they're trying to build on efficiencies. Sometimes they don't want you to come in and do a separate pass all the time if you can avoid it. If you're going to do a fungicide at flowering for a canola, and the temperature is getting hot, that's where Stoller's got the Excite product that we put down, and that's what their pitch is, to say, put this in with your fungicide, it's going to improve your flower blast, and that's the idea there. Yeah, and then the other part is a lot of these are actually designed or to go with herbicide, for example, right? So a lot of them make claims of, you know, say helping safeten your IMIs when you're putting your herbicide down on your peas. We've seen in previous years some pretty drastic differences of some products helping and some, you know, being entirely worse because of just environmental conditions. So yeah, good question. How much time do we have left? About 5 minutes? Okay. I think we've covered. Any more questions on what we're doing here? You want to get out and look through the plots a little bit and walk around and tell me your favorite treatment, maybe point out here. There's a few people, they were drawn to some nice canola over there.